You can't see my face. You might be able to see my face. 25 degrees, but I'm very hot because I'm drinking tea. And when you drink tea, you sweat for some reason. Oh, wow, I'm dying of heat exposure here. How are we doing? We're good, Yeah, we're good. Okay. Feels like I should have done something else. G'day, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sebastian and welcome to Rin Furniture. Today is a little different. There is such a big mess here, which you can't see. I don't want to show you. Because of that mess, I have decided to just shoot in this direction. Today we are on the last episode of the bedside tabletop, the refinishing, and we actually get to see the final product. So let's just jump right into it. Before we jump right into it, Happy New Year. And before we jump back into it, there is some good news. Recently, my partner and I got a new kitten. Her name is August, and she is a delight. Once she's old enough, we will employ her at Rin Furniture. She can be head of marketing. I'll just talk a little bit about my setup because I didn't really mention it too much in the previous videos. I have this marquee. It's an easy up, so essentially you can get it up really easily. It has these panels that you put on the side, and that's essentially to block wind. So I thought it would be a good idea to put those panels up so I could use it as a bit of a spray booth. And as you've probably seen in the previous video, it didn't quite work out because stuff still came flying in. I've been looking for a spray booth, a portable spray booth, and I know you can buy them, but for the cost and for the size that I need, I'm still trying to weigh that up. Okay, we're day 3, and this is probably the last coat. I may end up doing one more coat after this. I am going to do a quick sand. It's actually silky smooth here, so I don't actually have to sand too much off of it. But this edge is thicker than this, so I've turned it around so I spray this closer. That was just my poor method, and we will get this sprayed. The color is nearly a match, but this is gloss, so I've bought some satin. We're going to satinize this, and then we'll see how we go. I don't really have normal sandpaper. I just use the waste products of all of the Randon orbital sander or the belt sander, which means I don't really sand particularly well without anything electric. In this case, we're simply just sanding that surface, getting rid of any bumps, any little spiky bits, to try and just keep it as flat as we can. And then I've gone in with a rag. This is also a kitchen cloth, but it's a clean one. It did have a bit of coffee in it at some point of its life. Now I started mixing up the paint, and here I'm trying to color match. I haven't really talked about how I worked out what the right color was, because I didn't. Essentially, I had a limited amount of options to try and find the right color, so I just kind of guessed it and hoped that it would work. Now, hoping is not a nice thing that you should do for a client's project. This is my effort trying to get the precise amount of turpentine. It was very difficult to get anything accurate of that measuring cup, and even so with the spray can holder bottle plastic thing. I don't know what it's called. I think I used a name for it last week. Now I've completely forgotten what the name was. And then I stirred it. I'm not too sure whether I stirred the paint. I'm pretty sure I did. I generally stir paint exactly the amount of time they put in the instructions. So if it says 2 minutes, I stand there for 2 minutes and I stir, simply because time and time again I've not done it, and I've had horrible blotches of color all over the place because not following instructions. And it's not hard to follow instructions. It's 2 minutes. And here we go for the first And one of the last times I used this sprayer. Of course, this sprayer requires some degree of intelligence that I simply don't have. It took me 2 minutes and 10 seconds to put the bottle onto the electrical part of it. It was so difficult, but not because it's difficult, it's because I'm an idiot. And now I'm spraying it as even as I can. I'm trying to keep it the same distance across the entire stroke, and I'm trying not to curl the ends. Sometimes that can happen. And I'm also trying to keep an eye on the distance from the front to back, because there was like a lighter amount of stain at one edge compared to the other. And it looked like it went on really thick. So I was just having a look at it just to make sure that everything was okay. I was a bit concerned that it was so shiny, and I also had drips on the edges. So hot. Yeah, it's about 30 degrees, and of course in here it's even hotter. And while you might live in a more humid area, a hotter climate, I don't. So we're going to leave that there. We're going to clean the gun. I should have actually made the coats a lot more even. It's got some spotting there, and I don't quite know what causes that. Little bits of wax, maybe it's not completely clean. It's hard to know what those little lines were, and a little bit later on I'll show you a slightly better picture of it. It's actually quite hard to capture. And at this point I was thinking, I'd only spent a really short amount of time spraying, and I'm spending maybe 6 to 10 times more cleaning. And I realized at this point that this gun, a spray gun, is not that good for short jobs, unless it's important that you get like a mirror finish or a really even finish, because it does that really good. So you have to weigh these up. Is it worth the time, or is it worth the end result? Is that no, I didn't say that right. I also used the blower to clean out anything that was in there that was turpentine. Here you can see that one edge is drying and the other is still wet, and the one edge is sticking to that satin. The gloss has come away. Now I'm about to run some clean turpentine right through this machine, and you have to gear up again because you can see it atomizing. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in. Turpentine's pretty toxic. And then gave the bottle, that's what it's called, the spray bottle, a clean. Here we have a close-up of the two things that I was looking at. Down the bottom there is a thin coat. That is thin enough for me to see the colour. The second part is this dimple. This dimple, and there's tons of it all over the place, is the biggest worry. It's where the paint never really got into the middle of it. It's like part of the grain. It didn't stick into the grain. It's so hard to explain, and it's so hard to see, but as you can see slowly here, there's kind of quite a few examples of it, but you can see that dimple as a singular example. If you happen to know what this is, please let me know, because I couldn't figure it out. This plagued me all the way right to the very end. I was unable to fix it. I've carried on sanding. It is a quite nice time of the night. I think it was quite late at that point, maybe 6 o'clock. Which is quite late for me. I sanded it, and then I wiped it down, and then I wiped it with a wet wipe. What do they call those? It's like a little towelette, and it's wet. what's the name? Moist towelette, maybe? Baby wipes. That's the one that I was thinking of, baby wipes. And then I went through the whole process again because I thought that coat that I put on there was good, it looked good, but all of those little dimples, there was just too many. And I thought maybe what I should do is put more stain on it. So I mixed more up. I also cleaned the front because I realized that there was a lot of overspray and it was down the front, so I had to tidy that up. I didn't want to give this back to the client and realize that that was all there. Struggled with the gun a little bit, tested it out, and then sprayed the top with a quick coat and then the front with an even coat. Now I sprayed the front because there was overspray, but I didn't prepare any of it. I did actually talk to the client about that. They simply didn't care. They only cared about the top. They didn't care whether the paint would flake off on the front. They simply just didn't like the ugly look of the top. And there we go. I'm going to take that inside to stop the flies from getting at it because it was evening. And right about now is when I made one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my entire career of dealing with finishes or painting. But before I get to that, I'll show you another mistake I made on the technical side. Right, we have done the final coat. Made a few mistakes. Yeah, I talked to a camera, but the camera wasn't recording, and there's a very obvious tally light, which is the little red light you see on your camera, to tell the person who's in front of the camera is recording. And you can see here that light's not on, and I completely missed it. Maybe there was something in my preparation. Essentially what I was talking about were those blemishes, the dimples, and my attempt to fix it was to spray it again. I also mentioned the color match. It was pretty good, and that the color across the top had evened out. Thank you very much. We will see you later. So I made a big mess of the top. I was bringing it in, and of course it's so hot here that I ended up dropping some sweat on it. You can't really see, but it's there. I'll try and get the other camera. Okay, yeah, you can't quite see it. To be perfectly honest, it's evening out quite a bit. What you don't see is that when I took it into the shed and put it down, I realized I dripped the sweat onto the top. So I quickly grabbed the gun and resprayed it. And you can see in the background, there's spray on the side of the table saw. That's new. You can still see a couple of bumps there. I'll just try and point to it. Kind of in there. But it's like a million times better than what it was. But that is so glossy. Like, my gosh, that is just a little too crazy. It looks really mirror-like on the camera, but I'll be honest with you, it's not mirror-like in person. It's probably more like that. See the ripples? There's ripples there, and that's in real life it's quite bad. Where my finger's pointing, you can see that little ripple where those two wires are going through, 3 wires. That's where it starts, and it's kind of like that shape. I sanded them and then paint dripped on the edge, so hopefully I can clean that up. I'll do that now. No, not even going to try. It already looked like I'd done something wrong. Ugh. Yeah, man. So annoyed. It's evening out a bit, but still. So I quickly sprayed everything, and that actually was the reason why things started evening out. Had I left it, it wouldn't have looked great. I also wiped out the sweat that had dripped off. Sorry if you don't like the word sweat, I keep saying it. I wiped it out with a cloth and then sprayed it, and it actually worked. It evened out, flattened out essentially, like leveling compound. And this is the final product in situ. This is at the client's house. It's just a quick clip. As I dropped it off, we set it down on the carpet and I quickly took a bit of video. I'm never quite sure how to approach people when I ask, do you mind if I video this? Sometimes I just don't tell them and then I video them, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I can't make this video without their permission. And then I ask, and they're always generally quite great. But some people, it's just a flat no. And that is it for this video. We've finally finished something and it did okay. I've still got one more to do. I haven't had the time. I have too many other things going on. I've got a door here, which you can't see. That'll make sense later. I've got wood there. I've got wood there. I've got just stuff all across here. I've got to take this other thing home. So I think I'll just give you a quick little update on what I'm going to do this year. It's a very quick one. Next week's video is going back to the finger jointing. We are going to finish that off. Just a bit of a spoiler. The finger jointing doesn't work and I don't end up using it. Now you're probably going to think, well, that's a bit rough. You've just made us watch 8 episodes of you doing something that you never use. I think the purpose of my channel is just really to show you what I'm doing, irrespective of whether I achieve something great or not. Because to be perfectly honest, a lot of the things that I do aren't great. If you could see where I'm sitting and how terrible the paneling is in here, you might understand. But it's my mission to do better. So once we've finished the armrest, table, finger jointing thing, we're going to move on to a bathroom renovation. And that bathroom renovation will actually take quite a number of weeks. Initially, I was going to film it all and kind of edit it down, but I realized actually there's some really good bits in there, things that I learned, things that have been a bit of a surprise, and things that I'm proud of. And I think that that's the thing that I'm kind of excited to show. Me going, well, I worked that out. So I hope you've had a wonderful new year. 2025 is right ahead of us. We're only 6 days in and I've got a new kitten. So I'm already quite busy. And thank you very much for watching my videos. If you're enjoying them, please leave a like. And if you want to know more about what's coming up, you can hit the subscribe button and then you can get notifications so you know the stuff that I'm up to. And I'm going to do something different at the end here. It's just going to be blank. I'll see you next week. Do you think this part is going to be blank? Always kind of think there's going to be some sort of music playing. I have 2 cameras on me, talking to myself in a room. I very rarely talk to myself.